If you like me, you enjoy hitting the trails off-road, and if you're also like me, you enjoy having as much fun on the road as you do off it, so you've gone ahead and bought yourself some motard wheels. In this video, I'm going to be showing you how to install them properly. The tools you need are really simple and should be pretty easy to get. All I use are a ratchet set, some needle nose pliers, grease, chain lube, a rag, a separate chain if you're running different sprockets, and a different caliper mount if your front wheel has an oversized disc. And of course, you're going to need a set of motard wheels. First thing I like to do before lifting the bike up is to break the front and rear axle bolts just to make things a bit easier for me. On my bike, both the bolts are 27mm. After this is done, we can lift the bike. I usually start with swapping the front wheel just because it's easier for me to do. Before the front axle can be taken out, these bolts holding it in place need to be removed. On my bike, they're all 10mm. Now the front axle can come out, allowing us to remove the front wheel. Be careful when taking the wheel off just to avoid damaging anything. You also may need to push the other side of the axle to get it to slide out like I do here. Like I said before, if you're using an oversized front disc for better braking, you're most likely going to need a new caliper mount, which should come with your wheels. To swap this out, the front caliper must be removed first. Just as a side note, be very careful with your speedo cable here. The first time I swapped my wheels, I was pretty careless and I ended up breaking it, so my speedo didn't work at all. With Japanese bikes, they're not too expensive to replace, but on European ones like mine, they do cost a bit. On my bike, all I have to do is unclip it and then unscrew it from the caliper mount ready to be swapped over. To remove the stock caliper mount, you're going to need to take off these small clips that hold in your brake pads and then remove them. Depending on your bike, it might be a little different from how I'm doing it too. Once they're out, you should be able to pull off your mount with a little bit of force. After that, the new caliper mount should just slide straight in. Remember to put your brake pads back in too. Before putting the front wheel in, you should double check if it'll actually fit. Motard wheels are a lot wider than your dirt rims, so you might need to adjust some things. You can see here that I've actually had to cut some gaps in my fork guards with a hacksaw to make sure that the front one spins properly. When remounting the caliper, I also have to run my front brake line and my speedo cable on the outside instead of the inside as they rub up against the wheel, so just check if you're going to have to do the same. After screwing the speedo cable back into the front caliper, it's going to be ready to put back on again. This isn't necessary, but I like to grease up my bearings before I put the wheel on. If you are going to do this, just remember to clean them out before you do. What is necessary, however, is greasing up your front axle. With all that done, the front wheel can finally be put on. You can see here that I've actually taken the caliper off just to make things a bit easier for me, but you don't have to do this, you can easily put the wheel on without touching the caliper at all. These motard wheels are a lot heavier than dirt rims too, so keep that in mind when putting them on. Once the wheel is in, screw on all the bolts that have been taken off during the process. Now you're going to need to adjust your speedo. Because motard rims are smaller in circumference than dirt rims, the speedo is going to be out of whack, so you're going to have to change its settings in order to get the correct speed displayed. To do this on a KTM, all you need to do is remove the front light to get access to the wiring, and then find the 3-wide connector that has a red, brown, and black wire, and then unplug it. With that unplugged, turn on your speedo, make sure it's displaying hours, and then hold down the big button. Once you're in this menu, keep clicking until you reach WS for wheel size. It should be set at 2205, and you're going to want to lower that to whatever the circumference of your wheels are. For me, I lower it to 1882. When you're done with that, plug the connector back in and put the headlight back in place. There you go, the front wheel is now all done. Onto the back wheel. If you're using a different sprocket, you're going to need a new chain so you don't have any uneven wear. To remove the chain, you first need to find the master link. I like to remove this link with a flathead screwdriver and a hammer. Once this is off, remove the master link. To do this, I drive a screwdriver down the middle to separate the pieces. But if you are going to do it this way, just bear in mind you can wreck the link if you're not careful. The chain should slide out when you're finished. Now it's time to remove the rear wheel. Just like the front, slide the axle out and then the wheel should just come out pretty easily. Same as before, grease up your bearings and your rear axle. With all of this done, we can get to installing the rear wheel. This one is most likely going to be a little bit harder than the front as the space you're working with is a lot smaller. The best way I've found to get it in is to start from an angle at the top and just slowly slide it in. It took me a couple tries to get it, but eventually I got it. With the wheel in place, slide the axle in. Wipe off any excess grease and screw in the rear bolt, but not too tight. The chain still has to be set. Grab the new chain and slide it through the sprockets. Use the master link to connect the chain together. If you're using a regular chain, you shouldn't have any issues doing this, but if you have an O-ring chain, it might be a bit difficult as you need to compress the O-ring seal enough so that you can slide the clip over the top. This is my least favorite part of the job as I really struggle with setting an O-ring master link. The best way I found to do this is to get a good set of pliers. You can also see me using a small chain breaking tool to press the two sides together, which helps me a lot. With the chain on, make sure you tighten it to your bike's spec. Double check that all of your bolts are tight, and I'd also suggest pumping your brakes a couple times just to make sure that they work. And with that, the job's finally complete. Your dirt bike is now a street machine, and trust me, you're gonna have a lot of fun using it. Ride safely.